leaders to talk about the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. This is major legislation that provides $1.2 trillion worth of funding and will create 2 million jobs a year. And that's over a 10-year period. This is important to California for certain. There's going to be about $25 billion for highways, $4 billion for bridges, $10 billion for transit, $100 million for broadband expansion, and $385 million to expand electric vehicle charging stations. That's just for California. And we're here today to focus on an aspect that is critically important for the country, for the state, and most certainly our area, and that's the wildfire mitigation and forest health component. $7.5 billion in investment to ensure that our communities are safer. This is money for federal firefighters to make sure they finally get a living wage. It's funding to convert part-time firefighters to year-round firefighters, for hazardous fuels mitigation, for prescribed burns, for fuel breaks, for community wildfire defense programs, fire detection equipment, radio inoperability, and reverse 911, and importantly, to help underground electrical lines. It will certainly help in regard to fires, but for all of us who have had to deal with the PSPSs, it'll be a welcome help for us there as well. We all know how important this is, and it's not by chance that we're meeting here today at Coffey Park. We've experienced some tremendous fires, and it's really it's been tragic for our area and for all the people who live here. And in the 2017 Tubbs fire, as we all know too well, that fire came into this area. It leapt over 4 lanes of frontage road, 6 lanes of highway, and a major parking lot and commercial area, and landed here in Coffey Park. That fire was moving 3 football fields per minute, just to give an idea of how quick that was. We lost lives, we lost businesses, we lost livelihoods, and we lost homes. In Santa Rosa alone, there were 3,000 homes that were burned. In Coffey Park, 1,350 of those homes. One of our first visitors who came here was Speaker Nancy Pelosi. She came, she met with survivors, victims. She traveled the devastation, both here and other parts of the district that I represent, that Congressman Huffman represent, and she promised that she would help us, and believe me, she did. She was a tremendous help getting us the relief that we needed, directing critical resources where they would do the most good for our area, and she has not stopped helping. And the latest example of this is in the Buildback, or in the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that we're here to talk about, and in the Buildback Better Act. She continues to work hard to make sure that we have what we need, not only to invest in our lives and our future, but to make sure that we address the critical issue of climate change, which has plays such a large part in these devastating fires that we've experienced here in the area. And she's back today to continue that promise to help. And as we say in the Congress, I'd now like to yield to the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Thank you very much, Congressman Mike Thompson, for the invitation to be here today with you and with our colleague, Congressman Jared Huffman, but more importantly, to be here with the people here. To thank you, to say congratulations to you for what you have accomplished. It is a model for the nation. It is of national significance that you came together as a community And that word community has the word unity in it. And without that unity, you can't get everything done. I want to thank you. I know that shortly we'll be hearing from Annie Barber, who is our VIP today, speaking from her personal. But until we hear from our VIP, let me share some thoughts with you about all of this. This bipartisan infrastructure law is bipartisan, and that is part of its strength. But the president said when he was advocating for this law, this is great, it's bipartisan, but I will not confine my vision for the country to that bill. So there's much more in the Buildback Better legislation that is being negotiated in the Senate right now and will be imminently the law of the land, and so much more will spring from that. But understand this, your congressmen have been real strong advocates for you, for what you are doing, meeting the needs, but also doing so in a way that is entrepreneurial, fresh in its thinking, even from a grade school young lady that we are all very proud of, forming this park in a new and different and special way, to be respectful of the need for quiet, the need for festive, the need for just unity coming together. Our distinguished Mr. Thompson, again, has been, let me say it in a nice way, relentless, persistent, dissatisfied until we can meet the needs. But understand that what he talked about in this bill was just about California. This is about building the nation and building it back better. And you are an example of building back better. Not only did you build back, but better listening, acting in unity, and the rest. And Jared Huffman is a real champion in the Congress on a subject that Mr. Thompson mentioned in terms of the climate crisis. He's your advocate. He represents your views individually, as a group and all, but he also has the thinking personally, thinking locally, acting globally in terms of the climate crisis, which is part of the reason for so many of the natural disasters. So I don't know where he is right now. Oh, he's the one on crutches. It's not unusual that he would be here today because he's always there for the people of his district. And again, I come back to Mike Thompson, my personal friend for many, many years, even before he was in the Congress. But he can have a sternness about him, and he can have an impatience about timelines and the rest. So understand what a great champion he is in the Congress for all of you, for our firefighters. I call our firefighters our nobility. They protect us with their courage. You want me to start all over? just let's hear it from Mike Thompson, our champion, and all that. So he mentioned that he came 4 years ago. It wasn't just me. It was Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, Congresswoman O'Loughlin, Congressman DeSaulnier, Congresswoman Matsui, in addition to our joining Congressman Huffman and Congressman Thompson at that time. And that was heartbreaking. It was heartbreaking to see these pictures. Every lot a story. Every lot a story, and now almost every lot a triumph. We saw then, broke our hearts, homes destroyed, belongings incinerated, memories erased. It was so incredible just to see some places just a chimney, some places one strong thing from the house, but just so much devastation and the melting down of so many things. I mean, it's obviously ingrained in us as to what the danger was. And later we'll hear from our VIP, a survivor of this fire, Annie Barber, who will share her experience, which I'm sure is a shared experience for many. Today, I just want to, I hope I don't reiterate too much of what Mike said, but it's very important for you to understand the vast movement of this community's extraordinary resolve and resilience, united in determination to rebuild from the ruin, has been, I'll say it again, an example to the country. You are of national significance. This is a celebration. At the time, billboards in Sonoma County, I said this on the floor many times, as did my colleagues, said the love in the air is thicker than the smoke. And you have really lived up to what we saw that day when we came, all those songs. The love of the air is thicker than the smoke. Clearly, that is true here. That is true here. And that beautiful spirit especially is an inspiration to the rest of the country. Yes, with more severe droughts and extreme weather and long fire season, the climate crisis is fueling fires that are larger, fiercer, and more destructive. In just the last 5 years, California has seen 8 of the 10 largest fires on record. 3 of the 5 the deadliest. And in 2021 alone, more than 2.5 million acres in California had burned, an area larger than the whole state of Delaware. The fires have claimed too many lives, and I know that some are lost here, and our prayers are with their families, and too many livelihoods. They have leveled too many communities. Our families are suffering under orange skies and smoke-filled air, and this crisis demands urgent action. Not just to fight firefighting, but to prevent them in the first place. And that really comes back to our members in Congress from this area. Mr. Thompson has been, again, relentless, persistent, decisive. And that's why the California delegation, the 2 of them, not only in their own strength and persuasion, but encouraging other members of the California delegation, as well as Western region members, have fought and won $7.5 billion in the infrastructure bill to make our families safer and communities stronger, and some of that money here for Coffee Park and across California. The law directs, I said, for prevention, response, restoration. It reduces the fuel that feed these fires by thinning overcrowded forest areas, prescribed burns, and prescribed burns where appropriate. Invest in new technologies, ecological diversity, make forests less prone to severe wildfire. And it does, in terms of our firefighters, as Mr. Thompson mentioned, there's a year-round permanent positions for federal firefighters and help recruit and retain federal firefighters and raising their pay by up to $20,000 more. It also establishes a Wildfire Commission, which the President announced yesterday. This is just what the impression to give you is this is not just going to be to real, but as you have given the example, to build back better. And again, Mr. Thompson talked about the billions of dollars to enhance the resilience of our electric grid, $3.5 billion to help homeowners fireproof their homes in all of these ways. And again, to listen to science, not to just say we wouldn't have these fires if we just raked the floors of the floors. That's science, cutting edge research, he who shall be nameless. Indigenous knowledge as we fight the fire. So I'm sticking to my notes because I would be speaking longer if I just were not. Because this is not, that's that bill. Now Buildback Better, the next bill, will have $30 billion more to fight, to combat forest fires and contribute to healthy and resilient forests. Thank you. Thank you very much for making sure that that was in the bill. The largest ever federal investment in fighting the climate crisis. Over $500 billion to fight the climate crisis. The largest commitment to addressing the needs of fighting this climate crisis, to save the planet, to pass it on to future generations responsibly. And many of those provisions are provisions that help. Mr. Thompson was very instrumental in having Green Act tax incentives in the bill that are central to the success of the bill. Nobody did more than he did in terms of making this a true initiative to save the planet for our children. And Mr. Huffman serves on the select committee that has proposed, suggested these kinds of changes. So we have on a, shall we say, the money side, and on the idea side, our 2 members here coming together to make the future better in a substantial global way. So we're going to prevent wildfires before they strike. We're going to respond with every tool in our arsenal, including that wonderful fire truck, on which another is on the way. I heard from the fire chief, and it's just quite remarkable what has happened. And it all comes back to here. You suffered so much. You came together so beautifully. You listened to each other in terms of how to build back better, which became an inspiration for the country. So I congratulate you for that. I thank you for all of you have done in every aspect, whether it's in public service, in the nonprofit sector, in our security, our first responders, and the rest. But I also come here as Speaker of the House to thank you for sending Mike Thompson and Jared Huffman to the Congress of the United States. And with that, I'm pleased to yield to the distinguished member who shares the representation of Sonoma County, very proudly, the two of them, Congressman Jared Huffman. I yield to you. First, Jared.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and good morning, everyone. Please don't tell my orthopedic surgeon I'm here today. I'm just a few days out of a major knee surgery, but nothing could keep me from being here with Mike Thompson and Speaker Pelosi and all of you to celebrate some historic investments that we have secured for our infrastructure, our resilience, and for communities like this and many others around the state and around the country. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law has very, very important provisions for fire resiliency and wildfire prevention. As you heard from Mike Thompson and Speaker Pelosi, this Infrastructure and Investment and Jobs Act makes historic investments in mitigating wildfires, in forest health, in rehabilitation to the tune of $7.5 billion. That is a big number, and it's kind of hard to get our heads around a number that big. But what that translates to for fire victims, for first responders, is really huge, and it bears repeating. This law increases salaries for firefighters. It provides money for hazardous fuel breaks and prescribed burns. It adds dollars for developing community wildfire defense plans. It includes funds to increase early detection systems to assist also homeowners in fireproofing, energy efficiency, and it contains some concrete ways, as Mike Thompson alluded to prevent fires from starting from power lines. So the unfinished piece of this really important agenda is the Buildback Better Act, which we are pushing to get passed in the Senate and to get to President Biden's desk so that it too can become law. It's going to be a huge addition to this infrastructure bill. It has nearly $30 billion more dollars for wildfire mitigation and suppression, $3 billion for forest protection, including protection of water sources and old-growth forests, $1 billion for collaborative forest landscape restoration, and so much more. And while I don't mean to throw any shade on the United States Senate, it is important to note that the work of the House on both of these packages is done. And that's not an easy thing. We also have very thin margins, a narrow majority, but we are so fortunate to have the leadership of Speaker Nancy Pelosi to get legislation like this over the finish line. She is truly incredible, and we owe her a debt of gratitude for the smarts and the legislative steps. Now, for those of you who lost homes and loved ones in the historic fires of 2017, obviously those events are seared in our minds forever. There are no words to do justice to what it was like to experience those fires firsthand. Of course, Mike and I and just about all of you were right here. As the flames were still burning, we will never forget that. It was the first time we'd experienced a fire of this scale, a fire that jumped highways and jurisdictional lines and just ripped through parts of Sonoma County in almost the snap of a finger, as Mike Thompson described. And unfortunately, this area has had more fires just about every year since then. But it was during this 2017 unprecedented fire battle that I came to meet our next speaker, Shauna Jones. It wasn't here in Sonoma County. That fire that began in Napa also made its way up to Mendocino County in another part of my district. And that was in Redwood Valley in Mendocino, where I met Shauna Jones during the 2017 fires. It took lives and many homes there too. That fire, as I mentioned, swept through multiple counties, and at the time we hoped that it would never happen again, but I think we also kind of knew that it could, and it would. This crisis we're talking about is not coming, it's not something in the future, it's here and now. And as much as I like and admire Shauna, frankly, I've seen her way too many times since 2017. The truth is, we can improve our infrastructure, we can improve our vegetation management, our preparedness, and these things can help us prevent the kind of catastrophic damage we lived through in 2017. But the conditions that make us vulnerable to these catastrophic fires are going to continue to be with us, and that's why we are so fortunate to have dedicated public partners like Shauna and the rest of the first responders who time and again have risen to the occasion to protect life and property. So it is now my great honor and privilege to pass the mic to our very wonderful CAL FIRE Chief of Sonoma, Lake, and Napa County, Shauna Jones.
This morning, members of your local fire departments and first responders stand together in Coffee Park. So I want to say thank you for all of the firefighters for showing up today. And we're here in Coffee Park, a family neighborhood located in the city of Santa Rosa, devastated by the October 17 Tubbs fire. Fire which started 20 miles away in Calistoga in Napa County and moved rapidly across the wildland-urban interface, reaching and crossing Highway 1 in approximately 4 hours' time, ultimately burning thousands of homes and taking many precious lives. The Tubbs fire was only one of many fires which erupted that October evening, impacting Sonoma, Lake, Napa, and Mendocino counties. Locally, since 2015, over 1 million acres have burned local, city, state, and federal lands that have been consumed by large, devastating wildland fires here in the counties. Fires such as the Atlas, the Tubbs, the Nuns, the Valley, the Glass, and the 2020 Lightning Complex are listed currently on the top 20 most destructive fires in California's history. They're still on that list today, even despite all of the fires that we've had over the last several years. Those fires destroyed more than 12,000 structures, homes, and businesses, and took 40 precious lives. I said over 1 million acres since 2015. From CAL FIRE's historical database, it took the previous 100 years to burn that same amount of acreage. During several of these local fires mentioned, as well as many others across the state, resources from local, state, and federal agencies within California and across the nation were called upon to assist in fire suppression efforts. With these large and concurrent fires across California and the western states, resources were stretched beyond levels that we have never historically seen before. To suppress fires of this size and complexity, it's an all-hands effort, regardless of the patch we wear or the agencies that we work for. The Wildfire Mitigation Fund, as outlined by House Speaker Pelosi and Congressman Thompson, would not only provide funding for hazardous fuel mitigation, but would also increase the number of federal firefighting personnel, making more needed resources available for an emerging threat of fire. As we have seen and experienced far too often in the last few years, fire knows no jurisdictional boundaries. Whether city, state, or federal jurisdiction, every available firefighting resource is a valuable resource and a benefit to all California citizens. I'd like to introduce to you now Annie Barber, Coffee Park resident and fire supervisor. Thank you. So this time I'd like to invite my fire family up here, please. Madam Speaker, thank you for having this event for us today. We never would have thought that in Coffee Park that we would get this crowd and this illustrious group.
So welcome all of you to Coffee Park. October 9th of 2017 is forever etched in our memory. In a matter of hours, our neighborhood was gone, as well as 5 of our neighbors. As we trickled back home, hoping that we had been spared, we mostly discovered that there was nothing left. It looked like a war zone. We were in shock. Within a week, we were trying to navigate all of the issues, organizing, dealing with insurance, educating, forging on, crying, and then picking ourselves back up. A vicious cycle of acceptance. We were the fortunate ones. We had insurance, even if it didn't cover everything. We had a city surrounding us, supporting us. Most times we were just tired, but we also had times of celebration. The home was rebuilt, the hopper wall was replaced, insurance made a payment that we've been fighting for. Slowly but surely, our neighborhood started to come back. 4 years later, here we are. I invite you to take a look around at all of the beautiful new homes, our amazing park. It has been said that we've had the best recovery, and we feel fortunate and proud of all of our accomplishments. We love our community. Peek inside those shiny doors. Open floor plans, new kitchens and baths. But what else is there? Adults with health issues, anxiety, depression, broken relationships, children with nightmares and anxiety and anger issues. These things are much harder to fix than rebuilding a home. Some people have bought evacuation vehicles, campers and vans. To-go bags are year-round. A sense of security is lost. This is the part of recovery that people don't see when driving through Coffee Park. They think that we are lucky because we have new homes. Lost to them is the price that we have paid and the price that others pay every year with these fires. I am excited that we are investing so much into preventing these fires. I appreciate all of your hard work in getting this act passed. Prevention is key. It is much more than a home that you are saving. And now I would like to introduce Supervisor Diane Dillon and thank my fire family for always standing behind me.
It's an honor to be invited today to share the podium with my congressional representative, Mike Thompson, our congressional representative. He and I live a few blocks from each other, so I enjoy having him as a constituent as well. And Speaker Pelosi, thank you so much for being here. It means so much to all of us. And I am so admiration of all of you. You are an example for the entire United States, for the world, of what you've been able to do here. So thank you. Because it is very hard. And I really want to thank Congress and our federal government for the investment they're making in just what Annie described, in prevention. We have climate change. Climate change has brought us stronger winds like the ones we saw in 2017. It's brought us more intense heat events, and it's led to the vegetation in our forests and wildlands and the wildland-urban interface being drier, and all of that is a recipe for events like the ones we saw in 2017 and in Napa in 2020 again. I represent the area where the Glass Fire and the Hennessy Fire and the Tubbs Fire all occurred, and almost 2/5 of our county, Napa County, has burned in the last 5 years, and that's unacceptable. So what the Infrastructure Investment Act does for us is it provides prevention the ability, the tools, the money that we need to be able to do the prevention so these events will not happen again. So thank you, and thank you, and thank you. It's my honor now to introduce our Lake County neighbor, Supervisor Bruno Savateer.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. My heart goes out to all the residents of Coffee Park who experienced the unfortunate situation that we've all experienced here in Northern California. The trauma is real. The experience is real. The memories are definitely still vivid. In Lake County, it seems that climate change has decided that ground zero is in Lake County. We've experienced over 10 major wildfires in the last 6 years. 60% of our entire county has burned. We've lost community members. We've lost homes. Businesses have been impacted. Our schools, our children, all impacted. Time for the change. We've been proactive in trying to make that change, but it's difficult. It takes a lot of money to make those changes. This infrastructure bill changes that for us. So while there's many aspects to this bill that I would love to keep talking about, broadband and bridges and roads, we're here to talk about our emergencies. And so two of the things that I think are truly important is to mitigate the damages and the loss of life that we have during these emergencies. Communication. We've all experienced this with the fires. The communication is not always exactly what we anticipate. We need to do better. Broadband will help us with that. It will have access to the people who do not have that level of access to communication, keeping us informed on what is happening with the fires, where they're coming from, and where it's safe to go. But it's not just about the public, it's also about our first responders. They need to be able to communicate between one another and be able to best strategize on how to protect us and protect themselves. We always forget about that too. The other important factor, something we've experienced in Lake County, is water issues. We had a fire where we almost ran out of water not too long ago, and in 2016 we did run out of water. One of the infrastructure bill offers, what the infrastructure bill offers for us is the ability to do interties between all of our water districts. We have to work together and not just think of our district as being all alone. We've got to think community. As House Speaker Pelosi said, the unity. We got to unify our water districts to work together. If we're getting low on water in one area, open up the spigot and let the other water district help out. We need the infrastructure bill to provide these types of interties, these types of projects. The funding is not there at this moment. The funding will be there soon. So what I love about the infrastructure bill is this. We need to be proactive for the future and quit being reactive to the present. We have to change to make our homes safer, more predictable, and more stable, not just for us, but for our economy and everything else that we're impacted by. So again, it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for the votes for this bill, and looking forward to getting as much of that money as we can into Lake County. And I forgot to introduce, next after me is Sonoma County Supervisor James Gore.
I'd like to ask my colleagues to join me up here. Supervisor David Rabbit, Supervisor Chris Corsi, former mayor of Santa Rosa during the fires, current mayor and past mayor Tom Schwedhelm, and Chris Rogers, Jackie Elward from Roanoke Park, anybody else who's with us. I want to one thing that hasn't been said, talking about you all, is the quote that I think was best summed up by Lisa Frazee at our Board of Supervisors meeting, maybe 6 months after our fires. And she looked at us and said, we started as victims, then we became survivors, and we are working to transition into thrivers. Thrivers, right? I say that because Lisa, Howard, Gina, Sylvia, Rocio, I look at Jeff, Sasha, all of you rose up to be block captains, to be leaders in your community and rebuild. While you are individuals who are trying to rebuild your home, you are the ones who worked with us across these jurisdictional lines to make sure that Building Back Better was a reality. Everything from the pavement beneath our feet to the mailboxes that got put up, you would be amazed at the amount of controversy on things that seemed so simple, but we had to fight our butts off to make sure that they delivered for you all. And when I say that, it makes me really think that what we're doing here today and what Congressman Thompson is doing is rallying us under the decree of all hands on deck. After 2017, when 100 mile an hour winds hit those peaks and blew through our jurisdictions, the response was all hands on deck. FEMA, SBA, the state agencies, us locally, no jurisdiction mattered anymore. But for us to transition over into pre-defeating those kinds of events, it's all hands on deck. It's the federal government with over two-thirds of the area, 60% of the forest land in the state of California being under federal jurisdiction. It's the state with another 20% plus. It's the locals, and it's you all as the individuals who are the true leaders in our community. This kind of investment will fuel an all hands on deck approach to risk reduction, which is this nice government word, mitigation. Our goal is to embrace fires, to have the right kind of fires during the right time, and pre-defeat things so that we don't get into this world where we have to rally after the fact and charge the hill again. We proved it in 2019 with the Kincaid fire, after having 2017 with the Tubbs, evacuating 40% of our population, having everybody, the entire state armada, the feds here. And while we still lost homes, we secured our community. We can do more. This is the kind of leadership we need. We are in this together, all hands on deck. Good work on resilience only requires and begets more good work. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Speaker Pelosi. Bright future.
Well, thank you all very much for your great work, your great words. Speaker, again, thank you for being here today and for being here all along with us. And thank you to all of you. It is amazing to me where we are today. We talked about this picture that was so alarming just to look at. But I remember being here the day after and seeing cars that were overturned by the wind that was created from this fire. A motorcycle and a car in the middle of this park. I have a picture of a metal garage door that's 30 feet up in the air, stuck in a tree at the other end of this park. You have built back better. We have built back better. And my hat is off to all of you for everything that you've been through and everything that you've done. So thank you. Congratulations. I'd like to ask the press if they have any questions on. Hold on.
And thanking all of you for what you have done. We're talking about tens of billions of dollars here, $7 billion there. I want you to know that this is all paid for by making sure the wealthiest and corporate America pay their fair share. You hear those numbers and you wonder, no, it's paid for. And I also want to say, in everything that we do, and this is nothing like this, as I was just saying that when we came, well, not just that day, but on other occasions, just to see how things were. It looked like a nuclear attack. It really was such total devastation. It was hard to comprehend. So to see you take the path because of your mobilization, your collaboration with each other, from survival to success to transformation, just a path that is so excellent. And again, congratulations to you, and thank you for being a model to the nation. I hope the press questions will be on this subject that we came to talk about today.
When I hear those numbers, Madam Speaker, I think about something that President Clinton said. And I know we all had critics talk about spending all this money, but it was President Clinton who pointed out that anyone who says you can't solve a problem by throwing money at it is talking about somebody else's problem. You know how important that funding was. When the disaster relief came, when the federal government to help our city, our county, our state, and all the people affected. You know how important that money was, and you know how important this funding is going to be to ensure that we don't have to relive this in the future.
No.
Press? Yes, sir.
Ariel,
You have to speak up.
Ariel with the Record being Lake County. The national press and NBC News just last week talked about the Buildback Better agenda and the fact that it's been shelved and pushed onto like maybe the spring or March. So what are the likelihood or the chances that that this legislation will actually move forward and not be sort of pushed or forgotten about as so many others have in the past?
Well, I'm confident that it's going to pass. When that happens, we're negotiating it now, working on it now. There's been some changes made that make it more acceptable to those who have concerns, and I think the bill will pass. And if you have anything to add to that, it's an important piece of legislation. It's a large piece of legislation, and it takes time to work it through the system. There's a math problem that's associated with Build Back Better, and that is we do not have a majority in the U.S. Senate. It's a 50-50 tie, and it makes it tougher to get tough bills passed.
I thank you for your question. Yesterday, the President made a statement that was very important. I refer you to it. He said that we are working on the legislation. We never stop. Although I would hope that we could have it by Christmas, hopefully we'll have an agreement very soon. And the President referenced what it takes after that. CPO, Congressional Budget Office, Legislative Council, all the things that go into making sure that the language is a correct reflection of the purpose and that has clarity so that the money can get out there sooner. But since I mentioned the word money, I want to say this to our local officials here. This is Build Back Better, the bipartisan infrastructure, a part of the vision of President Biden. We started with the rescue package. Can't ignore that COVID is with us. And started with that, and because of Mike Thompson, Jared Huffman, and some of us here, we insisted that money go directly to the localities, not just to the state to distribute. Although it was important for the state to get its resources, that we recognize as municipalities and counties and the responsibilities that they have. So we, in that bill, put money in people's pockets, shots in their arms, try to get children safely back in school, and again, people back to work. But in doing so, a real recognition that education, transportation, safety issues, first responders are largely provided by the state and local governments. And so I thank you all for the leadership that you provided and helped us to get those provisions in the legislation, not just to the states, as important as that is, but also to our state and local governments. So again, it makes a difference. There was revenue lost because of COVID, and there were expenses incurred because of COVID, and we wanted to be sure that the recognition for state and local government was in the rescue package as well.
Speaker Jeffrey Schaub, CBS Radio, just briefly. As you know, within the Beltway, they're referring to him as President Manchin, and I wonder, from your perspective, whether this senator is holding up this legislation, if it's appropriate for him to do that, and if he's hurting the party as well.
Well, let me just say I wouldn't place too much credence on any gotcha statements coming out of the Beltway. That's what they do for a living. But the president is the president of the United States. He is so strong. So his vision is so about the people. It's about the people. It all springs from what is it that people care about across their kitchen table. Are they going to be able to pay their bills, afford their health care costs, afford the education of their children, paying the rent, the mortgage, whatever happens to be. And that is what he springs from. And in addition to that, again, he has a vision about fairness in our country so that people can reach their success and transformative in addition to just surviving. He is knowledgeable about legislation. He's been a senator for decades and a vice president of the United States. So he has a vision, he has knowledge, he has judgment, He has strategic thinking about how to pass legislation, and he is the President of the United States. And we are very respectful of all of our members. They all represent their districts, and that's a good thing. But we all have a national responsibility as well, and I have confidence that Joe Manchin will understand. We will find the agreement that is there to be made. But make no mistake, Joe Biden's in charge.